Morning, people. I'll get you up the big screen. Hold on. Nice to see you all there this morning, folks. Right, where are we? 107. Sorry, I'm busy trying to get the computer up and running so I can see your comments. Anyway, good morning, folks. Indytruck Davy, out the truck and at home in the house in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is overcast at the moment, although it's due to clear up, and it's 13 degrees. That's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather's like where you are, look out the bloody window. Alright, so let's get this review underway. Okay, now, Tuesday started with a mixed bag in the rags, although the most prominent story in Scotland is the so-called black hole and Scotland's finances. This comes as Finance Secretary Kate Forbes is set to present a financial review to the Scottish Parliament, and that is as the ONS are predicting a 3.5 billion black hole in Scotland's finances in the year 2026-2027. It would appear the ONS have got a crystal ball. Alright, it would also appear that, and the other story in the rags yesterday, I seem to have upset a few of you viewers with my throwaway comment on the last time Sarah and I had seen Andy Gorham. Now, in one of the rags yesterday, I think it was the Record, Andy tells a story of how Bomber, one of his pals, another footballer, got him off the bevy. As I said was last time Sarah and I seen Andy, he was out his tree. He was pissed and playing up. Now, it wasn't meant to be a slight on Mr. Gorham. I understand Mr. Gorham's got cancer and hasn't got long to live. It was just an observation on the last time Sarah and I seen Andy. Sarah and I used to be patrons at Andy's Bistro Bar in Lanark, and we regularly seen Mr. Gorham. But this goes back a few years and he was bebbing quite heavy at the time. It led to the breakup with his relationship with his second wife or third wife, Miriam. Anyway, I do apologise if I upset anybody with my comment on Andy being a wee bit drunk last time we seen him and acting out. It would appear that, according to what I'm being told, politics and football are intertwined in the west of Scotland. Well, only if you buy into it. I don't buy into football or it's a football a bigotry or its so-called involvement in politics here in Scotland. I have no interest in Celtic and Rangers and their stupidness. I have no interest. As I say, just a throwaway comment. Last time Sarah and I seen Andy, he was drunk. Alright. And that was a few years ago. So let's hope that clears that up, and I apologise if I've upset any football fans out there. Right, moving on, Tuesday here in Scotland started with the introduction of low emission zones in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Dundee and Aberdeen. The zones prohibit the most polluting vehicles from entering city centres. The introduction of the zones have cost bus and haulage companies a fortune, as they've had to replace rolling stock with modern Euro NCAP 6 vehicles which have emission reducing technology built into the vehicles. Alright, now the zones are a good idea as they will improve air quality in the city centres for visitors and people who work in the city centres alike. So yesterday seen the introduction of low emission zones in Scotland's 4 biggest cities. Alright. Right, let's move on. Tuesday also here in Scotland. By the way, most of today's report will be Scottish news because, let's face it, the House of Thieves and carpetbaggers are in recess at the moment. Right, anyway, moving on. Tuesday also here in Scotland is reported that 550,000 Scots are on a waiting list for NHS treatments. Alright, that equates to 1 in 10 Scots apparently. The backlog, which existed pre-pandemic but wasn't that big, was exasperated by the closing of many NHS services in 2020-2021 due to the pandemic. And as we know, services are only just getting up and running now, and we're in the middle of 2022. Okay. Now, according to what we're being told in the press, 1 in 9 Scots have waited more than 12 months for treatment. It's also reported that UK-wide it will take 7 years to clear NHS backlogs. But only in Scotland is this a bad news story. Alright, and failure of government. You know, the rest of the UK, it's just the pandemic's fault. But here in Scotland, it's directly the SNP bad. Alright, now that's what happens when you're on the best public services in the UK. The mainstream media have got to distort and make Scotland look as bad as Tory-run England and Labour-run Wales. Okay, so yep, we have massive backlogs due to the pandemic, and according to reports coming out of England and the Office for National Statistics, UK-wide it's going to take about 7 years to clear the backlogs. It may well take longer, especially in light of the current crisis we have with the cost of living and money no going as far as what it used to, because let's face it, inflationary pressures affect government and government procurement the same way it affects us and our buying power when we head to the shops. Okay, right, moving on. Tuesday, and there's a couple of good news stories in the press here in Scotland. Calmac gets ferry MV Lord of the Isles back into service to help release the pressure on the West Coast Lifeline services. There's also 2 new ferries entering into service after sea trials in June. The NV Loch Freesa and the MV Cusack will come into service, and that should alleviate the problems that there are at Calmac at the moment. So that maybe shut the BBC up for a wee bit, because transport's been doing my head in for the last few weeks. All we've had is train shite, ferry shite for months now. Alright, also Tuesday saw the opening of a new footbridge in Lossiemouth, allowing residents and visitors access to the East Beach again. Now, access to the East Beach was cut off after the previous bridge was deemed unsafe. So that's a good news, 2 good news stories. More ferries entering into service to alleviate the pressure in Calmac, and the reopening or access to the East Beach being made available again in Lossiemouth. Now, if you've never been to the East Beach in Lossiemouth, have a wee visit. It's a lovely beach, it really is. And Lossiemouth does some nice fish and chips while you're up there. Okay, right, moving on. Tuesday, and the cuckoos in the nest here in Scotland are calling for a public inquiry into why only 86.6% of the Scottish households have filled in the census. Now, the extended deadline to fill in the census was yesterday. Okay, now it's expected that 90% of households will have filled out the census by the time the total count is in. Now, it's time, I said this yesterday, for the Scottish Government to issue fines to those in the households who haven't bothered their arse to fill out the census. We know that there's been certain groups telling their members not to fill out the census, but bugger them, it's £1,000 fine a pop. Start sending out the letters. Right, anyway, the cuckoos in the nest, they want a public inquiry into it. Why? All this public inquiries do is put more squeeze on an already tight budget. Public inquiries cost a bloody fortune. We know the reason why only 90% of households have filled out Ian on the naughty step, are you? Well, warm it up, there'll be a few joining you, including Sarah, she's just up. Anyway, there's a few reasons why the census hasn't been successful this time. Lack of Scottish Government budget to advertise the census, the fact the census went online, and as we've already stated, certain groups in the population have decided, because the census was carried out at a different time from the census in our UK, they just weren't going to play. Okay, right, moving on. Tuesday, here in Scotland, and Transport Secretary June Galbraith hopeful the improved pay offer of 4.2% to train drivers will see an end to train drivers working to rule, and hopefully get the services up and running properly again. As we know, at this point in time, ScotRail is running a reduced service with over 800 services actually being cut daily, or 800 trains being cut daily. But if anybody's ever been on a train after the rush hour in the morning, the things are right empty. There is room to take some of these things and reduce the timetable. I mean, Sarah and I have got on that train in Airdrie going to Glasgow in the middle of the day, and we might be the only two bloody people on the train. So, you know, it must be costing a fortune to run these trains under capacity like that. Right, so, anyway, the Jenny Goldruth is hopeful that this pay offer of 4.2% will be accepted and that we can get the services back to normal. Alright, right, moving on Tuesday, and down that road, in the House, pertaining to the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, because remember it's on recess, Red Tory Leader and Deputy Red Tory Leader have been sent questionnaires to be filled out by Durham Police on their alleged breach of COVID rules. Now, it would appear in Englandshire that the police can't be bothered actually bloody interviewing people when they're suspected of committing a crime. Anytime Davy commits a crime in future and a copper shows up, Davy doesn't commit crimes, but let's say Davy does commit a crime. Anyway, if a copper shows up, Davy's just going to say, I haven't had time to deal with you fuckers. Send me a bloody questionnaire. Because that happens to be how it's done down that road now, it would appear. Alright. Now, I mean, Labour could be rudderless shortly if Durham Police issue the pair with fixed penalty notices. Because unlike the corrupt Blue Tory leader, Comrade Starmer and Comrade Rayner have a wee bit of integrity and say they will stand down if they're issued with fixed penalty notices for breaking COVID rules. Now, there's a Davy says here, I wonder how much pressure the Tories are putting on Durham Police to issue fixed penalty notices. You can bet your boots that somewhere in the background the Tories are trying to tamper with Durham Police's investigation into this matter. Because Bojo would love to get rid of Starmer. I don't know why, because Starmer's absolutely useless. Right, moving on. Christ, we're motoring through this today. Right, moving on Tuesday, and back here in Scotland, Kate Forbes delivers the outcome of her spending review to the Scottish Parliament. It also turns into a mini budget, alright. The review is in light of the pandemic, Brexit and a 5.2% cut to the block grant from Westminster. Now, the reduced budget and inflationary pressures means that Scotland's budget doesn't have the buying power it should have. Alright, now Ms Forbes tells the Parliament that there needs to be a reset of public services and how they're delivered, which in government talk generally means people are losing their jobs. Although Kate's not putting a figure on it the way they have done the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, she's not trying to get rid of 90,000 civil servants. What Kate actually said yesterday was, well, you know, we're winding down for the pandemic, the increased amount of people who worked in public services with the pandemic. A lot of them won't be laid off, a lot of them just be shifted. But let's face it, the track and trace teams or test and protect teams up here, they have been laid off. And of course, with the shutting down of the test centres and the inoculation centres or vaccination centres, these people will move to other areas in the NHS. Now, what's also been pointed out with Kate Forbes is where there might be job losses in one or two sectors in the economy, there will also be growth in the public sector because of the new national care system that's to be introduced. Alright, now, where will the axe fall in public services? Well, the axe is likely to fall in local government budgets, higher education, the court service, culture and external affairs. As I say, with money being concentrated on health and alleviating poverty. So the Scottish Government will concentrate on alleviating poverty, health and the transition to net zero. The money saved in cutting services elsewhere will see money redirected into health, with the NHS budget set to rise from 17.1 billion to 19 billion over the next 5 years. And also the new Scottish Social Security budget will also rise over the next 5 years from 3.9 billion at the moment to 6.1 billion. But as I say, that's an attempt to alleviate poverty. The new Scottish Social Security Service, as we know, the child payment and things like that, is going to be directed specifically with compassion and care towards those who have the least in our society. And as we all know, the measure of society is how it treats the least of us. And I'm glad to say that the Scottish Government are taking that approach, whereas down that road in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, they are persecuting the least of us, the disabled, the poor, and any Romani travellers actually, but here we go. Alright, so over the next 5 years, the Scottish block grant will rise from 41.8 billion to 47.5 billion, but with inflationary pressures, that is a real times cut to the block grant of 5.2%, as said earlier. So that's the gist of what Kate Forbes was telling the Parliament yesterday in her spending review. They're going to have to retarget the monies that they have got into essential services like NHS and providing social security. Now, there was also a good news story yesterday which might help alleviate a bit of the pain that's coming down the line, which has been created by the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers. Now, what was going on yesterday is the cuckoos in the nest were all screaming mismanagement of the economy by Scotland's, by the Scottish Government, mismanagement of the economy by the Scottish Government. But as we all know, and as Davy's already explained, it's not the Scottish Government, it's the half-wit imperial masters of the cuckoos in the nest, down in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers. Jesus Christ, they created inflationary pressures themselves by cutting us off with the world's biggest market, the EU. And of course, they created the energy crisis that we're seeing at the moment, which is piling on inflation. So we've got the cuckoos in the nest along that road blaming the Scottish Government, who only have one fiscal lever to do anything in the economy, rather than blaming the bampots in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers who have actually created the bloody situation with the Brexit fiasco and now the rampant profiteering in the energy market and swinging cuts right across the board, including the Welsh, Scots and Northern Irish block grants. Wow, they've got a brass neck, the cuckoos in the nest. No half. Anyway, moving on Tuesday. The good news story which might help alleviate the pain that's coming down the road is that Scotland has the fastest growing economy in the UK, apparently outside London, but I doubt that. I doubt the London bit's true. Anyway, inward investment in Scotland is absolutely massive. Why is inward investment in Scotland massive? Because they all expect Scotland to leave the UK shortly, and big companies from down south are relocating here, especially banks, because they want access to the UK markets, especially banks, as I say, because they want equivalence to be able to sell their services into the EU again. Because as we know, money and finance is fleeing London at a rapid rate of knots, and when the European Union have finished moving all their services, financial services out of London, London's going to be a shadow of what it used to be. Right? But say in the UK at this point in time, Scotland has the fastest growing economy and the fastest inward or the best inward, or the fastest or the biggest inward investment in any area in the UK, except for their calling it London, they're saying. But that was the BBC Scotland spin on it yesterday. It was also the fastest disappearance story of the BBC ever. The propaganda machine. First thing in the morning, it was there. By lunchtime, the story was gone. Right, so we have the fastest growing economy in the UK. We have inward investment, massive inward investment, especially banking services, as I say, but the reason for that is everybody's expecting Scotland to leave the UK and they want access to the European markets, especially banking services, advertising services, legal services, all the services that have been cut out of access to the European market because of Brexit, alright. As I say, but the BBC, that was reported first thing in the morning. Within hours, it disappeared off the BBC's website. Good news stories like that are not supposed to be there. Right, okay. Other headlines that were doing the rounds yesterday. UK research sciences reach precipice as access to EU research programmes shut down. So the higher education sector's about to take a smack. Alright, because of Brexit. And EDF rules out extension of Hinkley Point B nuclear reactor. The facility will wind down In August, with the removal of fuel rods, the UK government will try to pressure EDF to keep the reactor up and running in light of potential power problems and power shortages in the coming winter, but EDF have said, no, too bloody dangerous, we're shutting the bloody thing down. Right, and the other big story yesterday, as you'll be aware, was travel chaos in England, blamed on travel firms overselling package holidays, as thousands see travel firms cancel their getaways over the half-term holidays and short notice. Alright, but hey ho, who cares? If you booked a holiday and you don't get it, well it goes, you get your refund, you can book another one at another point in time. Okay, so they're the stories I picked out to talk about. I hope you found it entertaining, I hope you found it informative. We'll get on to what the rag's saying in a wee minute, because that ought to be quite interesting this morning. And it would appear we're right on schedule to get this down to half an hour programme. I should tell you as well that the two Davies will be putting out their second programme on taxation tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, in light of Davy here having a new job, which means Davy here is driving in the evenings instead of driving during the day. That's why you're seeing Davy in the house rather than in the cab of a truck. Alright, so let's move on to this morning and see what the rags will have to say. I'll get it off a big screen, folks, because it's easier on my eyes. Right, Scotland's papers. Years of savage cuts ahead and growing Tory rebellion, alright. The right-wing loony rag, the Scottish Daily Mail, goes on. Brace yourself for years of savage SNP cuts. There isn't any savage SNP cuts. This stuff is outrageous. We have a block grant which comes from Westminster. That is where the savage cuts are coming from. They're not coming for the SNP Scottish Green government at all. The savage cuts are coming to our block grant from down south. I've just explained that over the next 5 years the block grant will grow from 41.8 billion to 47.9 billion. Or was it 47.1? Let me have a look. Sorry, 47.5 billion. But that's actually a real times cut. A 5.2% cut the Scottish budget over the next 5 years. Alright, so this headline is just bollocks. And another one of the side headlines in the loony rag, the Mail, the Daily Mail, is PM under growing pressure. Right, the Scotsman says public services brace for brutal £1 billion cuts. Well, that's the way it goes. That's what happens when you vote no and you leave the guy next door in charge of your bloody wages. Davy doesn't give his wages to the guy next door. Only a fucking idiot would do that. Give their wages to the guy next door and expect him to give you back what you need to live on. Wow, just keep all the wages yourself and do what it is you need to do to live. Only lunatics give their money to the guy next door. And it would appear that's what unionists are, lunatics. Right, as I say, the Scotsman pressures public services brace for brutal £1 billion cut. The Herald has public sector facing brutal cuts as Forbes calls for reset of budget. She didn't call for it, she had no bloody choice. Inflationary pressures means that the budget that she'd already set in November, it just won't stretch as far as she thought it would. Simple as that. Right, the National has huge boost for 2023 Indy plans. Scottish Government set aside 20 million for big vote next year. So there you go, folks. All these people are saying no referendum next year. Well, apparently the Scottish Government's already budgeted for it. So it would appear that referendum's going ahead, because there's 20 million quid set to one side to pay for the bloody thing. Right, and let's go for some of the local rags today. The Press and Journal's got 20 million Indy is safe, yet services still facing cuts. So it would appear that the Unitic rag, the Press and Journal, are a wee bit upset that we're going to spend 20 million quid on an election stroke referendum. Right, what's the Times got? Frontline public services face budget cuts of more than 1 billion, and ethics chief threatens to resign over number 10 parties. Apparently, Bojo's placeman, Lord Gates, is about to gee up. After all, let's face it, after Bojo butchered the ministerial code, there's nothing for Lord Gates today. Right, and the Metro has Boris may be toast, Tory rebellion grows over Partygate. Well, we'll know a wee bit more about that when when we go over, stops spinning like a top as he bangs off one Tory MP the next to get a feel for how the land lies on whether Bojo would survive a vote of no confidence or not. And the Eye's got wee Govey out the picture actually. It's got PM phoning Tory MPs to save his job. There you go. Apparently Bojo and wee Govey are phoning round the 376 Tory MPs I think is left to find out whether Bojo would survive a vote of no confidence. And the Daily Telegraph has explained Partygate ethics chief tells PM. Lord Gates wants answers, that's why he's talking about chucking it. Alright. And SNP / budget to fund welfare. There you go. Money coming out of other services to ensure that the poor get what they bloody well need in this cost of living crisis. Blair, protocol row risk Good Friday deal. Now, I haven't spoken about Blair and wee Ruthie yet, but it looks like Blair and wee Ruthie are going to team up. So, the war criminal Tony Blair and Ruthie Tank Commander, looks like they're going to team up and launch a new centrist party apparently. That ought to see a wee bit of fun down that road. Let's move on. The loony rag, the Daily Express has, you've spent 8 billion of our money, what's gone wrong? UK government last night ordered aviation bosses to sort out the chaos in travel. There you have it. What else we got? The Record has, more guns is not the answer. Murray hits out over Texas massacre. Apparently tennis players have got an opinion. What we're looking for now, we're looking for a star. We're right on schedule. And the star goes on football. Scotland v Ukraine. Everybody's going to hate us, but we don't care. Tartan Army Rose World wants us to lose big match. So apparently the world wants Scotland to lose this match so that the Ukraine can advance to the World Cup finals. But as has already been pointed out, the Ukrainians are proud people. They don't want us giving them a bye. The Ukrainians, if they're going to get where they're going to get, they would rather do it in their own merits. So all this about the world's going to hate us and wants us to lose a lot of bollocks. If the Ukraine win this game tonight, they will win it on their own merits. Right, that's what I've got for you today, folks. I hope you found it entertaining and I hope you found it informative. Now, if you like what I do, as I say, just share it around. That's all. David and I are not looking to make money out of what we do. Not really interested in that. But if you think what I've got to say is relevant, then share it around, folks. Thanks. Now, on to the usual stuff. There are the elections coming up, and as we've just read, the SNP have put 20 million quid to one side for next year's referendum. So get your partisan politics in your pockets. Keep your eyes on the prize. Learn your how you gonies, and Davy will do another how you goni video at some point soon. Learn your how you gonies and get out there and win hearts and minds. The clock is ticking. Alright. Now, support the independent media because you won't get any of the bollocks you get for the BBC and the propaganda you get for the BBC. You'll get good stuff which is well researched and you'll get decent information. Okay, so support Broadcasting Scotland, Independence Live, Caledon Media and other vloggers and bloggers. If they've got a crowdfunder on the go and you've got a shekel to spare, throw them in the pot. These people do good work. And of course, health messaging. Keep to the guidance of face coverings in enclosed public spaces. Clean your hands and surfaces regularly. Use your napper with social distancing. And if you're still testing, please submit your test results to NHS Scotland so that we keep an eye on how much COVID is in the community. Use a lot. Have a nice day. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again.